What is up, you guys? I'm Maddy from Creative Readers, etc. And today I'm doing my second book talk. And this time we're going to be talking about The Early Years by John Flanagan, which is the pre-series to Ranger's Apprentice, which I have the first one right here. What a fabulous book. If you have not read this book series, oh my gosh, go read it. But for today we're going to be talking about The Early Years, which is a book series that is technically set before the actual series, but you really don't need to have read the actual series to know what's going on. So let's jump right into it. Okay, guys, book one is The Tournament at Gorlon, and I don't know why I keep showing you the cover. There's nothing there. Actually, Cassandra has the covers for them. Since I'm borrowing these books from her, she always keeps the covers to make sure she knows which books she has lent out to others, which is really smart, although not necessarily like good for me, because I'm just showing you a blank book. But here it is. I will put here, right here, in this book, where you go with the main character Halt, who in the main series he's like the ranger who's teaching the apprentice, but in this series we're focused on him and Crowley, who right now they're King's Rangers, but they've been like cut off as Rangers because this new guy, Morgrath, he is one of the people who rules one of the castles in the kingdom, who's run by the King Oswald. And King Oswald has gotten sick, and then Morgrath said, oh, well, I'll help you out. So he has King Oswald come into his castle for to protect him, but really what he's doing is just manipulating everything that he's saying, and basically he's poisoning him slowly so that he can take over as king. And Morgrath is really smart in these books. Another thing that he did was King Duncan, who is King Oswald's son, is heir to the throne when King Oswald dies. So Morgrath has this guy that's pretending to be King Duncan, and this pretend King Duncan and all his followers are riding around the kingdom and destroying towns, raiding places, just being all around bad people. And King Oswald is like, no, that's not my son. And also Crowley and Halt, who right now they know something's up, and they figured out that the king is sick and that Morgrath is manipulating him, and they also found out that King Duncan is being held by Morgrath. So Halt and Crowley find out that King Duncan has actually been taken captive by Morgrath, and they find out that there's this fake king. So they go around to where all the rangers have been released off duty, and they get 9 rangers. They recruit them for their crew, and then they go on a mission, and they elect Crowley as their leader. And I'm chewing gum. No. So they get these 9 rangers they travel around and recruit all the rangers to be on their team. And then this team, Halt and Crowley, go and they do a bunch of crazy stunts, break King Duncan out of his prison cell. So the other 7 rangers go and they capture the fake Duncan so that Morgrath can't say that that's the real Duncan anymore. And they get help from Baron Arnold, which is one of the people that's really loyal to the king, and he also has Redmont, which is his castle, and which obviously under the king. But so Baron Arnold is a big player in the games. He's high up there. He runs this castle. So they get him, and he believes them. He trusts them. He doesn't trust Morgrath at all. So they use Baron Arnold and his power in the kingdom so that when they go to this tournament, they have the real prince and they have the fake Prince Duncan. And so they're going to go over there and expose Morgrath and his evil plot. And then Pritchard is the person who taught Halt and Crowley everything that they know. He's their mentor, and he's basically like the OG ranger. So Pritchard shows up, and they're really excited that he shows up, which is, yes, character development. So Pritchard goes and he breaks into the castle and basically frees the king so that whenever they're at this tournament, because the book is called The Tournament at Gorlon, so basically at the tournament, Morgrath and Baron Arnold go head to head, with Morgrath knocking Baron Arnold off his horse and then almost killing him before the real King Duncan steps in. And then Morgrath and King Duncan start arguing in front of all the council of everyone who is anyone showed up at this tournament. So they start arguing and throwing accusations toward each other during this tournament. And then Morgrath pulls out paperwork with the king's seal, who he has been manipulating, that says that Duncan has been disowned by his father and that Morgrath is now the heir to the throne. But then Pritchard shows up with the real king, and the king exposes Morgrath, who goes and hides into his castle, and everyone's like, well, can't do much there. So Morgrath goes and hides in his castle, and then by the time that they decide to go flush him out, they go into the castle, they all break in, and they realize that there's a tunnel system under the castle that leads Morgrath out and into the mountains, which is where we come to the second book. Okay, so the second book is called The Battle at Hakman Heath. I don't know how much this autofocus works, if you can see that or not. I'm going to also edit a photo of the cover here. See, you didn't even know. You didn't even know, did you? So Morgrath goes up into the mountains and he starts using manipulation to control this race of, they're called wargles. They're basically a mix between a bear and a human, but the way that you communicate with them is mind control. So Morgrath masters how to use mind control on these wargles. So Pritchard knew about the tunnels somehow. We don't know how, because it wasn't written into the story. But Pritchard knows about these tunnels, and he knew about Morgrath's plan to escape. So whenever Halt goes and finds the end of the tunnel, whenever they go through the tunnel and find where it leads, they find that there's tracks everywhere, obviously a large amount of people and horses and basically all of Morgrath and his crew. They can see that they all went through the tunnel, but they also find Pritchard, who's been brutally murdered, on the side of the road. So Halt gets all emotional, which makes me emotional. Okay, listen up. I don't usually cry, but dang, I read 10 books in the original series, and Pritchard was talked about so much by Halt, and he just was held at such high esteem. And then, see, I'm getting a little worked up. And just, I don't know. Because, when you don't know a character, Pritchard was, he was such a good character, and he was basically the reason for all the characters being who they were. So, without Pritchard, none of this would have happened. And for him to have one book where he's so amazing and everyone's so happy, and then they just killed him, okay. It made me sad, but I was so proud of John Flanagan writing in that Pritchard dies, because the character development there, oh my gosh, it was really good, but also really sad. So Halt decides that he's going to go up into the mountains, which are extremely rugged, impossible to breach without going through a 3-step pass, which is the trail up the mountain, which Morgrath has completely blocked off by all his men. So Halt decides to go on a 3-day mission, and he climbs up the side of the mountain, which was a great scene in this book. It was A+. So he climbs up and he sees what they're doing, and then he goes back down while being chased by the wargles, of course. He brings the news back. All the while that Halt is up climbing the mountain, the king, Duncan, now the new king, who was the prince in the last one. Okay, so King Oswald does die, unfortunately, because Morgrath was poisoning him for so long, and he just can't regain his strength. So when he dies, Prince Duncan takes the throne that is rightfully his. The real King Duncan, guys, don't worry. So he takes the throne, and his wife is very, very pregnant at this point, and also not doing well at all. So it's Crowley's job, who is the leader of the Rangers now. He's trying to rebuild the force. He's got a lot on his plate. It's his job now to escort the Queen to where she's going to get help from medicine healers, basically, and just to hopefully have a safe pregnancy. So him and a bunch of soldiers and a couple of other archers from the army start to escort the Queen, and they run into some bandits on the way, but overall make it there just fine. So when they get there, everything is well, and Crowley goes back, but then when he gets back to the camp, Morgrath is joining all his forces together, and he's about to basically start a war. So he gets all the war ghouls, he's getting them ready for battle. When Halt went up on the mountain, he saw them drilling, doing army drills, marching, all that crazy stuff. So Crowley decides to go back and to meet with the king again to help out with the army because there's an upcoming battle, and it's very important that they can get as many people as they can, especially a ranger who has amazing abilities and is an amazing archer. So he's going back, and then one of the bandits that Crowley had stopped on the way there who had escaped, he goes and he tells Morgorath where the queen is. So Morgorath starts sending his troops over to where he knows that the queen is now. And Crowley hears of this from a messenger, and he books it back to where the queen is. And when he gets there, the ladies who are there say that she's unfit, she's already going into labor, there's no way they can move her to a safer place, even though they know that the bad guys are coming. So it's like a really tense situation, and she ends up having the baby there. And unfortunately, the queen was so weak from the pregnancy that she didn't make it. So Crowley takes the baby and he rides with the new Princess Cassandra, which is an amazing character in the other series. So he rides with Princess Cassandra all the way back to the castle, has to break the news to King Duncan, letting him know that the queen has died, but he has a new heir to his throne. And then they have just a large, amazing battle. Okay, John Flanagan's battle scenes that he writes are, oh my gosh, they're A+. Like, always so good, so detailed, you can just see it in your mind. Like, when I go through a reading block, it's not really me not wanting to read. It always ends up me being like, I psych myself out. So I'll be reading. I'll read 2 or 3 paragraphs, and then my brain will do like a reality check, like, oh, this is not actually happening. These are just words on a page. But let me tell you, like with this book right here, the second one, I stayed up till 1 a.m. on a school night, like reading this book. And let me tell you, I was dead the next day, but it was worth it. Because like this book, I got so sucked into it. I read 200 pages in 1 day. And okay, that's normal for Cassandra, but for me, that is not normal. Like, I usually just don't read that much in 1 day, but I got so sucked into this story. Oh my gosh, I forgot I was reading. I looked up and I was like 150 pages farther than the last time I remember checking the page. And like, oh my gosh, it was just so good. This series is so amazing. And I would definitely recommend, if you want to have the character development go in timeline order, then you should start with this book before reading The Ranger's Apprentice. But I really enjoyed like knowing how the character develops, because the original series, the Ranger's Apprentice series, was written before the early years series. So it was really interesting and fun to have read the series first, and then to see how the author had to like take his characters, and instead of developing them, he had to like undevelop, because it was years prior that this was all happening, and it was so interesting and fun, and it just makes me love the characters that much more, because like knowing them before all this happened, I don't know, it was so good. So that has been my review on the Early Years series by John Flanagan. This book series and all the characters that I already know and love, and the writing style, like, okay, if I could give this a 5 stars, I would, but I don't know. You can't write the perfect book though, which I guess is true. Although this is very close. I'm gonna give it 4.7. Oh my goodness gracious. Everything that needed to happen happened with these books, and I got so sucked into it, and it was so great. I highly, highly, highly recommend the Ranger's Apprentice series and the Early Years series. Right now, I'm working on the Brother Band series, which is a side series to this one. Okay, so that has been my review of The Early Years by John Flanagan. Go check it out. Go check out Ranger's Apprentice, my favorite author. Amazing books. Probably this series, along with the whole story and characters, are definitely my favorite books, and I love them so much. And shout out, oh yeah, and this is what my Ranger leaf is. Oh, it's been in my shirt the whole time. That's so sad. But yeah, I have the necklace of the Rangers, and I have a bronze one, which are for the apprentices. I don't know why I'm quotationing, that's just a fact. So I have the bronze leaf, which is for the apprentice Rangers, but we did it that way because I haven't finished the entirety of this world yet. I still have Brother Band to read and the Royal Ranger series to read. Cassandra has read them all multiple times. So she has the silver, which is the full Ranger leaf. And then we have a couple other people in our crew who all have these necklaces because we've all either started reading or completely read the book series. Like, it is so good. So comment down below what your favorite book series is to let me know. Give me recommendations on what I should read and what I should review. Just let me know what y'all want to see. So comment, like, subscribe. I'm an official YouTuber now. And we'll see you in the next one.